Hello, welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed your fall break, aka Friday. We're going to start now with unit number 3, writing for your organization. In this unit, we shift gears a little bit. In the past unit, we've talked about communicating, person to person and with inside an organization. Now we're going to talk about communicating the message of that organization outward into the media. And that takes a totally different sort of shift on writing, right? Because now you not only have to think about what your audience wants, to hear, and what like they'll know and how to tailor that message in a way that'll make sense to them. But now you have an added layer because you're not just writing for yourself and your feelings. You have to start thinking about what is the agenda of my organization, what are my organization's values, what is its mission, and how can I use writing to help achieve those things. So we get into some sort of higher order stuff. Our first lesson that we're going to cover today is press releases. I'm going to go ahead and tell you straight up that this is probably my favorite thing to teach because back in the day, aka 12 years ago now, I went to public relations school at the University of Florida, and press releases are one of the things that we learned how to do there. Now, because almost 12 or 10 or 12 years ago, we were learning how to write press releases, you might think, man, Adam, are they still relevant today? And that's a fair question. And I need for you to know that, since I'm kind of young in the game teaching, I really, strive to make sure that the things that we teach you in class are going to be relevant to you. I think sometimes teachers that have been around a long time teaching, they're like, oh, I don't want to change my curriculum because then I'll have to make new slides, and that's why people still learn about mimeographs, whatever they are. Anyhow, but if you watch the video interview with Shauna Newsom at the main page of this unit, we talked about that, and I said, Shauna, are press releases relevant today? And so what she kind of came back with was that, 30 years ago, press releases were like the main way in which you communicated the message of your organization to the media, because it was the only way. You wrote your press release and it went either into the local paper or maybe a national paper. It went to, one of the major news networks or cable networks. But now we have such a proliferation of different ways for you to get your message out there. Press releases don't have like the same market share that they used to. So like they're not really running the game anymore. And so there's all this, sort of diversity in ways that you can get your message out there, whether it's, on social media or on blogs or on your own website, what have you. And the thing that she said to me that I kind of agree with was that, yes, but press releases are still sort of the foundation for that communication because they are organized in a way that is most compatible with what the media puts out there. Like whenever you write a press release, you will write it first and then translate that information into social media, translate it into a blog, translate it, into whatever communication you need to get out for your organization. So we're teaching it to you, knowing that it's sort of diminished in its importance, but also knowing that it is foundational to all the other things that you're going to do in this unit. Wow, what an intro. Okay, sorry, that was a long time. Let's move on and talk about the objectives. Today we're going to talk about, hopefully when you leave here from being done with this lesson, you'll be able to say, is a story newsworthy? Most of the time it is. The difference between what makes a story newsworthy or not is not really its importance, it's on your ability to articulate that importance. Because there's a lot of things that you read in the news and you think, wow, this isn't newsworthy at all, but they did a good job. And so now I care about it. But anyway, we're also going to talk about the proper format for press releases. We want you to understand what inverted pyramid style is. It's really the foundational sort of the way that information is organized conceptually in the media. To write a compelling lead and summary paragraph, which are parts of the press release that you will learn, and then how to effectively use quotes in a press release. I feel like this is a thing that people botch all the time. And then that last objective there is actually the same thing that it says in the second one. Sorry about that. We just want to make really good and sure that you know all the parts of a news story. So let's move on. So here's some sort of rhetorical questions for you since you can't actually answer. Think about these, bring them to class. So what is a press release? Sort of like, what does it need? Like, what is its essence? And then what is its purpose? Like, what are you trying to achieve with writing your press release? I think sometimes when people have an event or something take place within the organization that they want to share with people, they think, oh, we should write a press release, but then they never actually stop and think about what do we want to achieve? Like, how are we being strategic in writing this press release? What are some examples of uses? So these are maybe some things to think about and share with us in class. And then how would you define public relations? Okay, and this is important because anytime that you write a press release, you're engaging in public relations. I'm really sorry. George Orwell has this great quote. It says, journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else is public relations. So anytime that you are, putting forward about like your new, plan for your business or some event that you're going to have, like like hay rides or, ag farm tours or whatever, like you're engaging in public relations because nobody needs to know that information, but you want to get it out there so that somebody does. All right, just need for you to understand what you're doing here. All right, so let's talk about what it is. When I say news release, media release, or press statement, all of those are pretty much interchangeable. They've been called various things over the years. We tend to stick with press release, but that's just because that's what I was taught to call it. There's no right way. It's a commonly used tool in public relations. Again, like I said, like a foundational sort of tool, but still an important one, because you still communicate your message to the media. And so just so we're being clear here, whenever you write a press release and you send it to the media, when I say the media, I mean your local newspaper, your local, television news station, even whenever you send it to a trade publication, you're hoping for one of two things to happen. You're hoping for either A, for them to get it and say, wow, this is interesting, it's relevant to our readers, and it's written so well that I can run it verbatim. And then they just put it in, and then your message gets in their publication, like unfettered in your exact words. A second thing that you could be hoping for in your press release is that you generate the interest or sort of pique the interest of a reporter, and they read it and they say, wow, this is interesting, but I want to write my own story about it. And so in the first example, let's make it really basic. Let's say that you're writing a press release and you're trying to get people to come out to your like corn maze benefit to cure cancer or something. In scenario A, like you send them their press release, they say, oh, wow, this is a good thing. It's written well. Let's go ahead and run it in the local paper. Scenario B is equally good. And the reporter looks at it and says, wow, this may be a good, human interest story. And so they use it as a basis of their story, but then they'll also go out to your, corn maze for cancer and interview people that went on it, maybe talk to you, get some extra information, and then write their own story and put that in. These are one of two things that can happen. A third thing that can happen is that it doesn't get picked up anywhere, and that it just goes in sort of an archive on your organization's website so that people can refer to it later. And I wanted to show you, just so we're clear. Let's see here. I pulled up Southern States, and this is their press room. And so whenever they release their press releases, so we have one here, they announce an alliance with Kentucky Equine Research. They bring new level of accuracy to farmers. They open a new generation of retail store in Monroe, wherever that is. And so this just becomes sort of their archive. And maybe some of these things got picked up by the local media, maybe they didn't, but they archive them here so that anybody that's interested about the company can come back and get that news in like a succinct sort of way. While we were talking about public relations, I also wanted to show you some of the big PR houses in the world, if you ever wanted to go into that kind of thing. This is Burson Marsteller. I'm not sure if they're the largest one still, but they go back to the 1930s, if I'm not mistaken. As a PR firm. We also have the Y&R group, the Young and Rubicam group, and then this is my favorite. It's the Wexley School for Girls, and they're a public relations thing, and they do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they they wanted to generate interest for a company that was essentially a headhunter company. And a headhunter just means that like they scout like really talented people that have a job and aren't necessarily looking for a job, and then try to steal them from that place that they work. And so they rented like a boom crane kind of thing, like they have on campus, parked unattended, and drove it around New York, like pretending to pluck people from buildings. So that's not really what we're getting into, but I just thought it was interesting. So let's see here. And again, how press releases are typically sent out is they can be emailed, they can be faxed, they can be hand mailed, or snail mailed rather, to the editors at papers, television stations, radio stations, etc. Some places, if they're more sophisticated, they'll have a way that you actually, submit your press release to them, through a web page where it categorizes it and whatnot. So let's talk about the first recorded press release. I just kind of want to give you a little bit of the history. It goes back to 1906 with the Atlantic City train wreck, kind of a devastating train wreck that occurred there. And this guy named Ivy Ledbetter Lee, who lived from 1877 to 1934, kind of took a different tack from what they normally did. Like most of the time, if you can imagine, this was an era when if something wrong happened or bad happened, you could sort of cover it up. You could keep the press out, and he kind of took a different tack and said, you know what, they're getting more diligent and more resourceful, and we really just need to engage with them like they're real people as opposed to hiding this, and this will make us look like a better company. And so what happened was they had this train wreck, and he issued his press release directly to the journalists. Like he basically wrote the story for them. And what that did was that, they were a little bit lazy, and they published it or used it as the basis for their own stories, and it prevented other versions of the story. So it was a way to control the message. And even though that like there's that element of control involved, his sort of take on how to handle this situation of this train wreck by opening it up to the press, to photographers, was sort of the first instance of fostering open communication with the media. And for whether that's for better or worse is not for me to judge, but that is kind of the way. I also have other fun facts here. He married this woman named Cornelia Bigelow. I only add that because I think it's a fun name. And he later went on, or prior to that, he started Parker and Lee, which was one of the first PR houses in America, and their tagline was accuracy, authenticity, and interest. Now I don't know what it would be, but it's probably not that noble. Anyhow, how do press releases help your business? For external audiences, they create awareness and understanding, elicit support, demonstrate relevance, and demonstrate legitimacy. And so I feel like these are kind of things that most people, understand, sort of intuitively, that if you send out a press release and it picks it up, people will read about it and they'll know more about your business. But maybe you've never thought about that strategically. So whenever you want to generate awareness of some event, or maybe just of your business in general or your organization and its cause in general, this may be a tool to help you get that. If you're eliciting support, I know that in our class we have a World Wildlife Fund, group, and so that might be a good one for. You may write your press release, to elicit support for a particular campaign that you're having, and so that'd be a good use. It also demonstrates relevance and legitimacy, and we'll talk about this in class. And one of the questions that I'm going to put for you all for your discussion questions this week is, how do you think that it would demonstrate legitimacy as an external form of communication? And then on the internal audiences, you just have faster, clearer communication with your internal stakeholders. Again, because you've packaged the information in a way that is succinct and you've controlled the message. And so like that example that I showed you of all the list of things on the Southern States website just a moment ago, that would be an example of controlling internal audiences. All right, let's see here. Let's save the nature of news writing for the next video.
Just sound